Would you believe that sometimes the people who should love you the most are the first ones to walk away? This is the story of a man who was abandoned by his own family, left with nothing but his little daughter and a ruined mountain cabin that everyone else had forgotten. But what he and his daughter built inside those broken walls changed their lives forever. If this story touches your heart, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel, because we bring you more stories of strength, hope, and the power of love. The man's name was Daniel. He had always been the quiet, steady one in his family. He married young, worked hard, and thought he was building a life filled with stability. But when tragedy struck and his wife passed away suddenly, Daniel's world fell apart. He turned to his family, hoping they would stand by him, but instead, they turned their backs. Some whispered that he wasn't strong enough. Others said he would never manage alone with a little girl. Their words cut deeper than any wound, but the sharpest pain was watching his daughter, Emily, only 7 years old, lose not just her mother, but the warmth of relatives who should have been her second family. With nowhere to go, Daniel remembered an old, half-forgotten cabin high in the mountains. It had belonged to his late grandfather, a place where he'd once spent summers as a child. The cabin was barely standing now, its roof sagging, windows broken, and nature crawling through every crack. When Daniel first brought Emily there, her tiny hand clutching his, she looked at the wreck and whispered, "Daddy, are we really going to live here?" His throat tightened, but he forced a smile. "We're not just going to live here, sweetheart. We're going to make it ours." The first nights were hard. Rain leaked through the roof, the cold bit at their bones, and wild winds howled through the trees outside. Emily would cry softly at night, missing her mother, her old bedroom, her friends at school. Daniel would hold her close, whispering stories about stars and telling her that sometimes life breaks us down only to give us the chance to rebuild stronger. Inside, though, he was scared of failing, scared of not being enough. Every day became a test of strength. Daniel scavenged old wood from the forest, patched the roof with tarps, and hammered rusty nails into place with blistered hands. Emily helped the only way she could, painting signs that said, "Welcome home," on pieces of scrap wood, or picking wildflowers and putting them in jars inside the cabin. Slowly, the place began to feel less like ruins and more like a heartbeat. But their challenges didn't end with fixing the cabin. Winter was brutal in the mountains. Snow piled high, food ran low, and Daniel often went without meals so Emily could eat. There were nights he sat awake, staring at the fire, wondering if his family had been right, if he really wasn't strong enough. Yet each morning when he looked at Emily's face, bright with determination despite the hardships, something inside him pushed forward. One day, while fixing the cracked stone fireplace, Daniel found a box buried beneath the floorboards. Inside were his grandfather's old journals, filled with notes about the cabin, the land, and thoughts on healing from his own losses. His grandfather had written about how the mountains saved him when life broke him down. Daniel realized then, maybe this cabin wasn't just a roof over their heads. Maybe it was meant to heal them too. So he and Emily began to make it a haven. They painted the walls with bright colors, built shelves out of fallen branches, and invited nature inside with flowers and stones. Emily's laughter slowly returned, echoing through the forest. They planted a small garden where nothing but weeds had grown before, and when spring came, tiny green shoots poked through the soil, a sign of life, of resilience. The cabin became more than shelter. It became a sanctuary for their bond, a place where Emily learned that family wasn't about how many people stayed around you, but about who never left your side. Daniel found healing in watching his daughter grow stronger, braver, and more joyful with each passing season. They had been abandoned, but in the process, they found each other in a way they might never have before. Years later, people who hiked the mountain would sometimes stumble across their little haven. They would see the warm smoke rising from the chimney, the wildflowers blooming at the doorstep, and the sound of laughter spilling into the forest. Some asked to sit inside for a while, to feel the peace that seemed to radiate from the walls. Daniel always welcomed them, remembering how it felt to have no one. Slowly, their cabin became known as a healing place, not just for them, but for others who carried invisible wounds. Daniel's family, the ones who had abandoned him, eventually heard of what he had built. Some came out of curiosity, others out of guilt. They found a man they barely recognized, not broken and weak as they had predicted, but strong, steady, and full of quiet pride. They saw a little girl, once fragile and sad, now glowing with confidence. Though the bitterness of the past still lingered, Daniel realized he didn't need their approval anymore. The mountains had given him something better, the chance to prove to himself, and to Emily, that love and perseverance could rebuild even the most shattered life. So if you ever feel abandoned, if you ever feel broken, remember this story. Sometimes the ruins life leaves behind aren't the end, they're the beginning of something you never thought you could build. Daniel and Emily didn't just fix a cabin. They turned it into a healing haven, one that stood as proof that even in loneliness, love can light the way. If this story touched you, take a second to like this video, and subscribe to our channel for more powerful and emotional stories. Because maybe, just maybe, the story you hear next will be the one that helps you find your own healing haven.